Okay, so I was watching YouTube and I got recommended this video, I guess because I follow Jordan Peterson and watch those videos, so the algorithm recommended it to me. And it was Noam Chomsky's first mention of Jordan Peterson. And as far as I know, this is the first that anyone has asked Noam Chomsky about Jordan Peterson, and subsequently, because of this video, this was the first time that Jordan Peterson was publicly asked about Noam Chomsky, as far as I know. And if you don't know who these people are, let me sum it up for you. Jordan Peterson represents everything that is good and true in this world, and Noam Chomsky represents everything that is false and evil in this world. And that sounds like a simple-minded dichotomy. Well, it's true. It's just the way it is. And so let me prove to you how true it is. And I don't understand why Noam Chomsky is such a respected intellectual. He is obviously very intelligent, very well read, and very, very well educated. But his ideas, his gaslighting, his historical revisionism, his flat out lies, but worse, his manipulation of language. I don't understand how even people, some people on the right, give him some credibility and some respect. And if you don't know about his educational background, he's a linguist. He's one of the most respected, well-read, most published, most cited linguists that have ever lived. I've heard it said, I don't quote me on this, that he is the most quoted person in college textbooks. Obviously, these would be humanities and gender studies and nonsense courses, STEM courses where facts don't matter. But still, he's the most quoted intellectual in universities of our time. And this is what he has to say about Jordan Peterson.
You have some similarities with Jordan Peterson on this issue, and I know that you haven't talked much about Jordan Peterson, and I wanted to know if you had any disagreements with what he says.
Frankly, I pay very little attention, but
right off the bat, that's nonsense. The entire world knows who Jordan Peterson is, and it's not like he's some pop culture figure. He's one of the most well-respected public intellectuals also. Some would say that it rivals his own intellectual status, especially the breadth of subject matter that he seriously engages in on a highly intellectual level. It's definitely comparable or exceeds Noam Chomsky's contributions. So he's acting like, oh, who's this nobody? Like bullcrap. He's a PhD clinician from the University of Toronto and the most downloaded and listened to serious intellectual possibly that has ever lived.
If you want to know about Jordan Peterson, I think the best thing I can refer you to is an article by Nathan Robinson, very sharp, acute critic.
So that was a hit piece. That of all the words and columns and commentaries spoken about Jordan Peterson, he references, I believe it's a New York Times hit piece, which was just incredibly unreasonable. And I don't think that that's why he dislikes Jordan Peterson. I think he uses that reference, that record of Jordan Peterson's work because he likes that narrative, as opposed to that. I think he's smart enough to know the breadth of Jordan Peterson's work.
His journal, Current Affairs, it's called something like The Intellectual We Deserve or something like that. I think that's basically my answer.
It was an absolute hit piece, by the way. Just acting like the only real intellectuals are the intellectuals that agree with the left's extreme ideology, and any intellectual or supposed intellectual that agrees with some semblance of right-leaning narratives or presuppositions is not a real intellectual. It's absolutely nonsense, garbage journalism that we come to expect from the mainstream media.
Other than that, I don't get any attention. I mean, there's some issues on which I probably agree with Hitler. No, it doesn't mean much.
Yeah, you're really a serious intellectual when you're comparing one of the most reasonable and popular philosophers and intellectuals of our time. You're comparing them to Hitler. Yeah, and I know it's not a direct comparison. He brought it up in the same. He brought Jordan Peterson up and Hitler in the same sentence, giving an example of, well, I might agree with him on some things, but I don't want to be. I wouldn't want my name tied to him any more, or his views any more than I would want it tied to Hitler. That's basically the comparison he's making. Is he doesn't want his possible potential happenstance agreement with Jordan Peterson to be taken as support for, which just tells you the type of extreme political camp that Noam Chomsky sees himself as a part of.
Some people have suggested that we should remove universities. And this is Jordan Peterson, for example, suggests students don't go to universities anymore because of the bias, because of the unitary point of views. And this is reminiscent of anarchist Ivan Illich's desire to eliminate.
Listen to what Jordan Peterson is saying. He's saying universities are dominated by the left. Now, for him, the left is anybody to the left of Attila the Hun.
And for you, anybody to the right is anybody to the right of Lenin. You're such a manipulator of language. Well, I'll let him finish the thought here.
In fact, universities are dominated by the right.
Okay, you would have. There is no narrative. There is no viewpoint, left, center, or fairy dust, that you could possibly in your wildest dreams come to the conclusion that the universities and academia are dominated by the right. And the fact that he thinks that, the fact that is at least the narrative he's willing to promote, even if he doesn't believe that narrative, the narrative he's willing to promote is that, so he thinks of himself as being to the left, to the far left, probably, of whatever he considers to be at the universities. And universities are filled with revisionist, critical race theory, ascientific, abiological gender theory, not to mention just anti-Western in every way, anti-Christian, anti everything that Western values stand for, let alone the right. The right is becoming the only people defending Western values, which is sad. The center should be defending Western values. But if you define the center as just simply defending the Western values that generated liberalism, like liberty and liberalism, like that is, to him, that is a far right idea, because the universities are not defending classical liberalism in any way, shape, or form. They are for censorship. They are for shutting down people who disagree with them. The ratio of political affiliation is 99-1, and in some universities it's literally 100-0. That there are no people who vote Republican in that university, and the most I've seen it at any university of note or public university is 5% conservative, or 5% people who identify as Republicans to 95%. So this is he's just starting off. We're not even halfway through a 3-minute video, and his manipulation of terms is as grotesque and irrational as it could possibly be. And this guy is considered to be one of the most formidable intellectuals of our time, and I just don't get why at least people on the right should be pushing back against his sophistry.
he's so far on the right that looks like the left to him. But does it make sense to tell students not to go to universities? It's crazy. It's one of the places where you can, there's lots of things, but there are.
So right now, especially in America, but probably all across the Western world, there are 7 million unfilled skilled labor jobs. So when he says it's crazy not to go to university, making 100 grand, 120 grand, anywhere between 50 and 150 grand for a skilled labor job like welding or sheet metal fabrication or plumber, only operating your own small plumbing business. What he means by crazy is then you won't get indoctrinated into my ridiculously irrational worldview. Not it won't turn out good for you, crazy. It would definitely turn out good for you to be one of those people who can fill the 7 million in-demand jobs and never be worried about a job in your life, and people be competing for your business and for your skills. That's not what he means by crazy. He means, oh, you don't get the postmodern worldview that I subscribe to, crazy. And to me, that's more crazy than not going to college.
Resources and opportunities that simply don't exist anywhere else. You can't. There are opportunities to become free.
With the advent of the internet and online learning, this just isn't the case anymore. And you also don't need to go to a gender studies side of campus to do networking. There are so many other ways to do networking.
Independent, creative individual working with others that you just don't have elsewhere.
Sorry, I misspoke. I didn't mean that to suggest that he suggests to eliminate the universities. I'm more trying to convey the decentralizing of universities. So, for example, an online school.
There's a lot you miss in an online school.
Yeah, like his level of indoctrination.
Your peers. One of the big parts of education is the student.
I went to college for 4 years. I didn't socialize. I didn't have time to. There are other ways to socialize. There are other ways to network with creative individuals. Most of my beneficial connections were made in private enterprise, not at a public university.
Once you're with, that those kinds of interactions are gone online, and they're very important for educating.
Oh, he's so worried about us being socialized. Yeah, that's so. Let me get this straight. You go in debt 40 to 150 grand so that you can socialize. This is nonsense. This person, why is this effing person taken seriously? You can get the technical education in other ways. You can go to a trade school. You can go to a STEM degree. You don't have to go to the liberal arts side of campuses to do anything of value in your life, unless you want to, be a social critic or a cultural critic, and so you want to go to where they are. Or you want to learn their views, but you can learn their views by watching CNN. You can learn their views by listening to an hour podcast where Noam Chomsky is interviewed. You don't have to go to university to do any of this except socialize physically. And is that worth being in debt 40 to 150 grand? Socialize at the freaking coffee shop.
Oneself, for anybody who's been through a school or university situation knows how you can learn more from interaction with your peers than from sitting in on a lecture. Even interaction with the faculty. So it's one thing to sit in a lecture class or watch a television screen, and it's another thing to be in an actual class where you're interacting with other students and with the faculty. So yes, there are good things. I mean, I think it's good to try to extend the resources of a university elsewhere, but there's nothing to replace the direct face-to-face interaction.
That I might give him a little bit of that point, but is that worth going in debt 40 to 150 grand on average? Don't think so.
just when you're in class, but when you're doing something else, when you're sitting in a McDonald's and having a hamburger with your friends and talking.
So, long story short, Noam Chomsky is the antithesis of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is the antithesis of Noam Chomsky. I don't see this being talked about anywhere, and I don't. And Jordan Peterson, when he was talked about it, he does not know this. He is being very cordial and very nice. Now you notice Noam Chomsky, he knows this. He used Hitler and Jordan Peterson in the same sentence, so he knows that they are the antithesis. Good. This is what happens to the right all the time. They don't understand that when leftists put on a smile and they have a sword behind their back, and this is the mistake that the right has been making for decades now, is these people are not trying to honestly understand you. They are not trying to have a good faith discussion. There are some people who are, and those people are now on the right. Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, and too many others to mention, but those are the most notable people. The only rational people of good faith who are on the left are not on the left anymore.